Okay, great. Good morning, everybody, and hi again. And since my, do you hear me properly?
We hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so since I sent the abstract, we had new conclusions about in our research, so I changed the title a bit. And now the title is Resistance and Autonomy at the Beginning of Urbanism and the Tel Bet Yerah Broken Maceheads. Next, please. So first I would like to speak a bit about macehead in the southern Levant. It's considered to be the first dedicated anti-human weapon. It appeared in the Levant during the Neolithic period in the 7th millennium BCE. During the next period, the Chalcolithic period, it was made of stone and copper, and it may have been even then even too precious to be a weapon because copper was very expensive. During the next period, the early bronze, around 3,800 until 2,400, it was made solely of stone. It is considered, the macehead is considered by many to be not a very functional weapon because the bore, the shafts for the handle are very thin. Uh, and they are they are the only clear weapon of the early Bronze Age. Next, please. Uh, Many consider them to be a symbolic, at this time, many consider them to be a symbolic weapon of the elite of the ruler. And one of the reasons for that is the Narmer palette from Egypt, in which you see Narmer, one of the first pharaohs, submitting one of his warrior with holding a mace head. Next, please. Uh, with the early bronze in the Levant, I will speak mainly about the 2 and 3, started around 3000. Um, this is considered to be the beginning of urbanism and social stratification. The early bronze too, we see it as a heterarchy society in which the material culture is fairly uniform. We don't see large elite burials or large buildings, and there's a few prestige items. But around 2,800, with the start of the EB3, there starts a shift toward a more stratified society. We see a bit more prestige items. We see a bit more houses which looks like palaces, and and we see a bit more monumental buildings and temples. Next, please. Uh, the site in which we found all these mace heads is Tel Bet Yerah. It's next to the Sea of Galilee in the north of Israel. You can see the plan of its plan and a place in Israel on the right. It was excavated since the 1930s, and it has stratification of all of the sub-periods of the early bronze. There were 3 fortification walls built one after the other. There is Acropolis, and on the Acropolis there is the circle building. And next slide, please. So the circus building was excavated in the 1940s. It, it is built of stone. There are 7 sunken circles on a raised platforms, stone platforms. It has, this is the plan of it. It has an inner room, inner courtyard, and it's surrounded by paved streets all over. Next slide, please. You can see the streets around it. And at the north of the circus building, oh, sorry, before that. The building was supposed to be a central granary. You can see the reconstruction on the top right. It was built at the beginning of the EB3, but we think it was a product of the EB2 because the structure was open, so it was accessible. It wasn't a granary that meant to take taxes and surrounded by high walls. It was something very open and probably for redistribution by the community. It was never completed. Next, please. At the north of the building, we found a 500-meter square open area, which we call the plaza. You can see the plan of it, and into the plaza there were a few stairs that led to it from the street. You can see the stairs in the picture and in the plan. Next, please. So the plaza was not finished. Sorry, the circus building was never finished, and it was occupied by what we call squatters. These are people who are called the Tel Bet Yerah people. It's immigrant population originated in the Kura Arax culture, early trans-Caucasian culture, and the material culture is totally different, and you can really identify them easily. They use the circle building and they build few features that are not connected to the basic structure. Next, please. So in the circles building, or in the plaza, we found 72 fragments of mace heads during the modern excavation. Almost all of them were found in the plaza, as you can see in the plan. All the points there. There were few outside of it, but usually really close. Most of them are made of polished limestones, and none of them could be refitted. And therefore, we think that the minimum number of individuals it's 72, and think that we dug less than half of the plaza, and we found the mace head fragment in every square. So I guess there's at least twice in there. Next, please. Most of them were found in the lower levels, and in which the material culture is Tel Bet Yerah. Next, please. So this is the technical analysis. Next, please. So we did analysis on all of the mace heads, and we saw that most of them, almost all of them are made of small grain hard limestone, which is easy to find in the southern Levant. There's lack of standardization. They have various sizes and shape. They were very symmetrical, but they were hard to produce. Next, please. The stone is very hard, and even when I made the replica, it was really hard to drill the hole, even with a modern electric drill. All of them were smoother than polished. Next, please. And in many of them, even the bore, the shaft was smoothed or polished. Next, please. The shaft diameter was around 13 millimeters, and the reconstructed weight of the approximate of the complete mace head is around 300 grams. Next, please. So we made several replicas and tested them on several kinds of targets. And the results from the test were that 13 millimeter shaft, like in most of the mace heads, was enough for the mace to be an effective weapon against humans. But when hitting a hard target like a rock, the handle broke immediately. When we enlarged the diameter to 16 or 17 millimeters, so the mace itself broke immediately when hitting a hard target. Next, please. The fragmentation in the replica was always along the shaft. And so the shaft appeared in almost all of the fragments. There were only 1 to 3 breakage planes in all of the fragments. If you can see in the figure on the right, the replica is the bottom one, and the The two upper ones are the archaeological finds. We saw that a handle with a conical end does not need a glue to be safely attached to the handle. You just have to with a bit of pressure and it stays there. Next, please. So you can see that the archaeological mace head has many more planes, breakage planes. So all the archaeological finds are small, or almost all of them. Many were not broken along the expected fault lines along the shafts, as you can see in the picture here, which is really interesting breakage pattern. The greatest majority had 3 or more breakage planes. So it seems that the breakage pattern in the archaeological find is a result of hitting hard surfaces with a lot of force and multiple blows. Next, please. Next, please. And now I would like to discuss the finds. So first I would like to speak about the functionality and symbolism of it. The mace head is made of easily obtainable raw material. It comes in varied size and forms, but the production process is complex. So we assume that it was created or produced by non-centralized production by specialists. This, and also the large quantities we found, we mean that it was not an elite or prestige item. It was expensive, but it wasn't very expensive. It wasn't really hard to get. Based on our experiments, we see that the mace head could be an effective weapon, but it was not sturdy enough for war or for recurrent use. The handle with the conical hand. The handle with the conical end did not need glue to hold it in place. So we think that the smoothest shafts are the outcome of long use and recurrent replacements of the handles, which means they were used for a long time. Next, please. So we had 2 questions. Question 1 was who did it, and the question 2 was why they do it. So the mace head was fairly valuable, not very, but fairly. So in order to collect so many mace heads, it means that the people who collected them needed to have social power or persuasion abilities, or maybe the help of traditions of rituals or wealth enough to gather all of these. We think that there is a greater chance that the local people had these abilities and not the KKW people, because the KKW people were immigrants. In their material culture, we see no evidence of wealth or prestigious items. we don't think they had a lot of persuasion abilities over the local population. Also, the mace head is very local, and it doesn't appear in KKW context, either in Tel Bet Yerah or in other places in which we find them. So we believe that the mace head belonged to the locals and maybe the heads of the households, and also was broken by the locals. Next, please. So, but when the KKW came, the fragments were mixed in the middens. So the breakage was just immediately before they came. So, and possible explanation of why was it broken or how was it broken? There's 2. One of them is unintentional breaking, like maybe during production, maybe during battle, maybe during second intentional breakage, like ritual killing through burial rites or other rituals, destruction of booty, conspicuous consumptions, or other explanation. Next, please. The unintentional breaking doesn't sound very tangible, because as we could see, the breakage pattern with multiple planes, small fragments, and not along the bores means the breakage was intentional. Next, please. We think that someone broke these maceheads and it broke the fragments again and again. Someone put a lot of effort in order to break them. So what are the other options? It's about intentional destruction. One of them is ritual killing, but we think that rituals and especially burial rites would be something common for a whole culture. And since this is a very unique find, we don't find any other event like that in the southern Levant except for one place in Syria. So since it's so rare, we don't think it's something connected to ritual. The booty option also is not the best because, as we can see, it's not a very effective weapon. And as I showed you in the lecture yesterday, there's meager evidence of armed conflict during the period. You should remember that in contrary to Professor Krau's lecture before, yes, I saw it. So it's much ancient, much older period. We don't think it's also conspicuous consumption because they were not expensive enough. Next, please. So we need another explanation. Next, please, which is connected with the symbolism. So hunter-gatherers avoided social hierarchy for millions of years. Even with the move to agriculture, it took several thousands of years until clear social hierarchy can be seen in the archaeological records. The macehead in the southern Levant is found only throughout this period, from the Neolithic to the early Bronze. It was an able weapon, but it was not good for frequent use of war. And it's found in large quantities, but it was not a prestige item. Therefore, next please. In contrary to previous assumptions on the role of the mace as a symbol of the ruler, we would like to suggest that it was a symbol of hierarchy, independence, and resistance to central rule. It may have been held by the heads of the local greater household to show their willingness to exercise power in case of their autonomy is compromised. Next, please. And this is very similar to the original reasons behind the Second Amendment of the US. Next, please. The one that allows now people to carry guns there. So to conclude, we think that the maceheads were symbolic but able weapons that were held by the heads of the household as a symbol of their autonomy and resistance to hierarchy. The destruction of this symbol of independence took place at the early Bronze 2 to 3 transition, a period of intensifying social hierarchy. We suggest that the maces were collected by the new leaders of the community and were broken as part of an attempt to break old traditions and hierarchical notions. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ari, for your presentation. If you can stay with us, we come back later for the discussion.